Split City DIY, and today is the second episode in the recurring series, Prime Things I Learned This Week. Today's major segment is on audio and the many things that can go wrong, but I'll be starting with an interesting article I read about quantum computing. Although the segment is the shorter of the two, it is certainly the more complex. So what is quantum computing? On the absolute surface level, because once again, this is very complex, computers right now store single bits of data, a 1 or a 0, which sends messages of on or off, true or false, essentially binary statements of either or. But quantum computing can express those binary statements at the same time, multiple times over, essentially creating infinite possibilities of what can be expressed in a single statement. This is important for things like researching genetics or simulating complex world financial markets. So, IBM has a quantum computer that they are now sharing with the public via a cloud platform with a graphical interface, which should help speed up progress for this relatively new form of computer. All of this is very experimental and still in a fairly early stage, but certainly a big deal and exciting. It's the next frontier in computer science with implications to truly impact the whole world when you think about the applications. I stumbled upon this article and posted it on the Blitz City Facebook page a few days ago, but I'll also link it below. I try to post articles like this about once a day on there around noon as sort of a lunch break read, so if things like this interest you, be sure to toss a like on the page. But now, for the main attraction. I had the luck, or misfortune, depending how you look at it, to have a new segment for this week's episode almost before the week had even started. It's even related to the channel. To cut to the chase, basically there was no voiceover audio on episode 1 of Prime Things if you tried to watch it on a mobile device with the device's speakers the day it was posted. It's since been re-uploaded with the playback issue fixed. If you watched it on a laptop, your desktop computer, used headphones with your smartphone, streamed it on Roku or Apple TV, anything else, it was all good. But if you watched on your smartphone with the phone's internal speakers, like how many people do, then you had some garbled sounding noise in place of my voice, which maybe some of you prefer. But all of the music was still intact, which deepened the mystery. At first, this seems like a really dauntingly frustrating issue, not unlike the Windows 10 taskbar problem I discussed last week. My first few searches on Google brought up basically nothing, until I came across a message board on creativecow.net. Here, many people had experienced the problem, and as a result, I learned what it was. Phase cancellation. So what's phase cancellation? When audio is recorded in stereo, it has two separate waveforms, or channels, that are working in tandem or in phase with each other. Being out of phase is when the waveforms become slightly out of sync. And you can get some weird sound artifacts when this happens. A common way that this pops up in recording is when people use two mics to mic their guitar amp. And the mics are at different distances from the amp, which means that the audio is reaching each mic at a different time. When those two singles are played back together, they're a little out of phase with each other. Phase cancellation, though, is when the two waveforms become so out of sync that they actually block each other from producing any signal. Think of it like those awkward moments in hallways when two people turn a corner and bump into each other. They will stop, tell the other to go, they'll step to the left, to the right. Although there's a lot of movement happening, no one's really moving. And that's what happens in phase cancellation. There's a waveform present with levels, but a signal can't get out. And it's very hard to naturally produce total phase cancellation. But digitally, it's really easy. And that's what happened with my recording. I was practicing some bad audio techniques, both good intentions. Normally I use an RCA to 1/8 inch cable, I'm back to using that today, to bring the audio signal from my mixer into my camera. Now I've had some noise with this, and I knew that some of that was the cable, since RCA is an unbalanced connection. So I want to experiment with a 1/4 inch stereo cable, which is a balanced connection to an 1/8 inch stereo cable, to see what happens. And in post, it sounded better, so I thought it was a really good idea. And just a quick tip. 2 black stripes on a 1/4 inch connector means stereo, and 1 black stripe means mono. That's how you can tell them apart. Now, back to our story. The only problem is when I was using RCA to 1/8 inch, it was a true stereo signal. Two separate paths of audio were being fed through the stereo 1/8 inch connector. Now, since the 1/4 inch stereo cable was taking a signal from a mono output, it was doubling that mono signal to create a stereo signal. Now, normally this wouldn't be a big deal, but that doubled mono signal was recorded by the camera and flipped so that the two channels were now mirror images of each other, creating phase cancellation. And this is a common problem when using the 1/8 inch input on your camera. And now it isn't a problem if that recorded audio is played back through a stereo output, allowing both channels to play separately. And basically any modern electronic device that plays audio has stereo playback, with the exception of internal speakers on smartphones and tablets. Those tiny little speakers, or in the iPhone's case, a single speaker, only output a mono signal. For a stereo signal to send through a mono output, the two channels have to combine their powers into one single channel to become mono. When the two channels are flipped, they cancel each other out, thus explaining why the voiceover playback on my computer was fine, stereo, but disaster on phones, mono. The music wasn't affected because the tracks were true stereo recordings, and as a result, there were no phasing issues. So how do you fix it? You're going to split that recorded stereo signal out so that the left and right channel are separated. Then you take one side, I chose the left because I'm a bleeding heart, bring it back into your video timeline and select fill the right with left. Depending on your software, it may be called something else, but this will create a true stereo signal without the phase cancellation, which will allow your video to be played on all devices, stereo or mono. And this fix was outlined in a video on the forum, and I will link that video below, along with the 2 forum threads from Creative Cow that I used to fix this. And with that concludes episode 2 of Prime Things I Learned This Week. If you liked it or disliked it, feel free to let me know by clicking or typing below. Until next time, this has been Blitz City DIY.